Here is the secret of the second-hand boat market that you need to get on the inside of. Some of the greatest sport fishers ever built almost never come up for sale, and when one finally does, it is gone before the listing photos finish loading. These are boats from the 1950s through the 1990s, hulls so well made that the people who own them would sooner sell a kidney. Today we are looking at 15 of them and why their owners simply refuse to let go. If classic sport fishers had a king, this would be it. The Bertram 31 came from Ray Hunt's Deep V hull, the same design Dick Bertram drove through 6-foot seas to win the 1960 Miami to Nassau race, and Bertram put it into fiberglass production the following year. Over its production run, they built around 1,860 of them, which sounds like a lot until you actually try to buy one. Here is the thing. Owners describe the Bertram 31 the way car people describe a 1967 Shelby Mustang, a boat you own as much as an investment as a thing to fish from. The low center of gravity and engines mounted amidships gave it a roll that was steady rather than violent, the kind of motion that does not throw your coffee across the cockpit when a wake rolls through. Marlin magazine named it one of only 10 boats it called legends in their own time. A good one almost never reaches the open market. They get handed between friends, quietly, before anyone outside the circle even hears the boat is available. So the Bertram set the production benchmark. Now for the boat that did the same trick in wood decades earlier. Buddy Merritt built the Merritt 37 for exactly one job: catching giant tuna at Cat Cay and running there faster than anything else in the fleet. Only 13 were ever built, in Alaskan cedar on mahogany frames, with no galley, no salon, and no shower. Just a huge cockpit and a hull that produced almost no wake at speed, which matters more than it sounds, because a wary bluefin tuna will spook at a wake long before it sees the boat. The handling became the stuff of dockside legend. Captain Gary Stuve, who ran a 37 for golfer Jack Nicklaus through the 1970s, put it the way everyone eventually quotes: "Those boats turned on a dime and gave you 5 cents change." And here is the part that explains why you will not find one for sale. 12 of the original 13 are still afloat and still fishing. 12 boats built in the 1950s still working after 70 years. No production boat on Earth has a survival record that comes anywhere close. When you own one of 12, you do not sell. You just keep fishing it. Now from a boat built by the dozen to one built from scratch, because in 1947 nothing else existed. This is the boat that invented the entire category. The Miss Chevy, too, was not just the first Rybovich, she was the first purpose-built custom offshore sport fisher in American history. John Rybovich and his sons built her in West Palm Beach with a carvel-planked cedar hull and a bright finished mahogany deck house, carrying an integrated fly bridge, a proper fighting chair, and the first set of aluminium outriggers ever seen, every feature designed from nothing because nothing adequate existed yet. The client was a Chevrolet dealer. The price was $30,000, which in 1947 could have bought a comfortable row of houses, and the promise was 20 knots in any condition. She delivered. Word spread so fast that within 2 years, Tony Accardo, Al Capone's right-hand man, had commissioned hull number 2, and Firestone, Gillette, and Maytag followed. The Rybovich yard never ran a single advertisement because the boat did the marketing for them. Willis Slane wanted a boat that could survive the water off Cape Hatteras, which is one of the most violent stretches of ocean on the American East Coast, so he simply built one and named it after the place to make the point. The Hatteras 41 convertible, the famous Nitwits, was the first all-fiberglass sport fisher in the 40-foot range, and designer Jack Hargrave gave it a sharp entry, a flared bow, and a planing hull that could top 30 knots. That number deserves a second look. In 1960, most fiberglass boats of that size could barely get onto plane at all, wallowing along like a wet mattress. The 41 embarrassed every one of them. It took standing seas and breaking chop with a composure that made captains comfortable trusting it with paying clients. And tournament circuits through the 60s and 70s were won in 41s as often as any other boat afloat. Owners hang on to them because the 41 is the boat that proved fiberglass could do what custom wood had always done, and a clean original is a genuine piece of marine history nobody wants to give up. So Hatteras conquered the production market. Now for the New Jersey family that controlled every piece of the build themselves. Bob and Bill Healy founded Viking Yachts in New Jersey in 1964 with one principle that set them apart from every rival, which was that they would build nearly everything themselves. Around 90% of each Viking, the hull, the superstructure, the interior, the systems, was built inside the Viking factory in New Gretna. The logic was simple. If you control every stage, nothing gets compromised in the gap between one supplier and the next. The 46 convertible was the boat that turned that philosophy into a reputation. In 5-foot Atlantic seas, it tracked dead straight, bow up, and kept winning, running the canyons, the Gulf Stream edge, and the long crossings to Bermuda before coming home first. Viking became the benchmark for production sport fishers, not through marketing, but because their boats kept turning up at tournaments and outfishing everything tied up next to them. The old saying around the docks was that you did not buy a Viking, you married one. And people stay married to them, which is exactly why the good early 46s rarely reach a broker. Now, from a factory that built everything in-house to a Florida yard where the builder was often the captain too. Whiticar Boat Works in Stuart, Florida, built sport fishers the slow way, by hand, one at a time, out of mahogany so thick you could barely drive a nail through it. Kurt Whiticar designed and built custom boats with plank mahogany on heavy frames, a sharp 4-foot to split headseas cleanly, and a shallow dead-rise transom tuned for Florida's rough inlets. The locals had a name for bad winter weather. They called it Whiticar weather because that was when the Whiticars were in their element and everything else went home early. The Sea Lion fished giant tuna out of Montauk, crossed to the Bahamas dozens of times, and became a crown jewel of the Palm Beach fishing scene. Then, in 2017, Hurricane Irma punched 3 holes in her portside and sank her right at the dock. Most boats would have been written off on the spot. The Sea Lion was salvaged for $5, rebuilt over 4 years, and put back in the water looking better than new. Think about that. A boat built in 1963 was worth a complete 4-year restoration after sitting on the bottom. These hulls are not just old, they are genuinely difficult to kill. So Whiticar built for the water he knew. 200 nautical miles north, another family was chasing pure speed. By the time the Rybovich 46 appeared, the Rybovich name on a transom did roughly what a Ferrari badge does on a driveway, except it said more about how seriously the owner took fishing than about their bank balance. This was the golden era of Tommy Rybovich, a man so obsessive and demanding that working for him required a particular tolerance for being told to do the job again, properly this time. The results justified the difficulty. Cold-molded mahogany gave the 46 a weight and stiffness no fiberglass boat of the era could match. The broken shear line, the dip you see in the deck profile, was not styling, it was structure, giving the hull a torsional rigidity that absorbed offshore impact instead of passing it down into the boat. Captains described the motion in 4-foot chop as authoritative and settled, which is captain language for a boat that simply does not argue with you. A Rybovich 46 in bad weather was not something you endured. It was a boat quietly bringing you home whether you had earned it or not. Owners do not let those go. Buddy Davis, 47, 1979. Buddy Davis started out as a chartermate at Oregon Inlet on North Carolina's Outer Banks, a place where the warm Gulf Stream collides with the cold Labrador Current, and the inlets can rearrange a hull if you get the timing wrong. Davis built boats for those conditions because, frankly, he had no choice. The Buddy Davis 47, launched in 1979, was the first Carolina-style custom sport fisher built on a production basis, and its defining feature was the flared bow, an aggressive outward curve that threw spray wide and kept the deck dry in head seas. Davis pioneered that flair and built it into the DNA of every Carolina boat that came after. When the sky went dark over Hatteras and the swells stacked up, captains in a Davis boat pushed the throttle forward while everyone else turned for home. So the Carolina builders built for survival. Down in Florida, one yard built the boat that dominated everything at once. Hatteras, 53. Convertible, 1969. The Hatteras 53 became the most popular large sport fishing convertible of its entire decade, and the numbers behind it are not subtle. Twin Detroit diesels pushed it along at 16 to 20 knots, and a 650-gallon fuel capacity gave it the kind of range that turns a distant canyon into a day trip. The hull was built heavier than the standards of the day actually required, because Hatteras ran the engineering numbers and then added a margin on top, the way a careful builder adds an extra coat of paint. More than 200 convertibles and over 300 motor yacht versions were built, and that is not a cult following. That is an entire nation of owners who kept coming back because the boat always brought them home. A well-kept 53 still does everything it was designed to do half a century later. Owners refuse to sell because replacing one would mean buying something new that, honestly, does not ride any better and does not feel any more solid underfoot. Now, from the production giant to a custom builder that refused to compete on volume and competed only on quality. Whiticar Shearwater, 1963. The Shearwater was what Whiticars built when a customer wanted something smaller and faster than the big customs. It had a sharp variable deed-rise hull, shallow at the transom for Florida's rough inlets and deeper at the bow for the open ocean, and a pair of GM diesels that pushed it to 27 knots flat out. That was not just quick for the era, it was faster than the competition's top speed, the equivalent of turning up to a road race and outrunning everyone while barely trying. President Nixon fished aboard a 1963 Whiticar, and charter captains ran Shearwaters out of Stewart for decades on schedules that would have destroyed a lesser hull inside 5 years. The mahogany held up because Whiticars chose his timber personally, plank by plank. When Hurricane Irma proved that a sunken Whiticars was still worth raising at serious cost, it confirmed what the fishing community had known for 60 years. There is really no such thing as an old Whiticars. There are only the ones that have been fished harder than the others, and none of them ever seem to come up for sale. So Whiticars owned the Florida custom scene. New Jersey, meanwhile, was quietly raising the bar. Viking 55 convertible, 1983. The Viking 55, introduced in 1983, raised the bar for every production sport fisher on the market, and the competition knew it immediately. Its hull combined Viking's in-house construction discipline with a performance profile that matched custom boats costing 3 times the price, which is a bit like finding a hand-built sports car wearing a family sedan price tag. Viking did one clever thing that newer builders often forget. They sat down with tournament captains, the people who would actually fish the boat, and let them help design the cockpit layout. Sales climbed as buyers took the 55 to the canyons, the Gulf Stream, Bermuda, and the Bahamas, and it kept winning. Old tournament captains described the 55 the way pilots talk about a particular aircraft. It did exactly what you asked. It told you politely when it was approaching its limits, and it never surprised you at the worst possible moment. That is the complete description of a boat a person can trust offshore, and trust is the one thing nobody willingly sells. Now, from New Jersey's finest to the largest sport fisher Bertram had ever dared to attempt. Bertram 54. Convertible, 1981. The Bertram 54 arrived in 1981 and stayed in production for 12 years, which in the world of large sport fishers is less a model run au Buastan and more a dynasty. It was built on the same deep V philosophy Ray Hunt had handed Bertram 2 decades earlier, scaled up to 54 feet with twin turbocharged diesels and a full tournament cockpit. Solid fiberglass below the waterline. No coring, no shortcuts. Bertram had built its whole name on Hunt's hull and was not about to water it down. Captains who ran 54 seconds in the Bahamas, the Gulf of Mexico, and off the Carolinas described a boat that absorbed rough water rather than fought it. The deed-rise soaking up the impact and the boat's own weight soaking up the rebound. In 6-foot seas, it was working hard, but always working in the right direction. The 54 became one of the top-selling large sport fishers ever made, and the telling detail is this. Repowered examples are still fishing tournament circuits today, not as nostalgic curiosities, but as genuine competitors. You do not sell a boat that can still win. So Bertram proved a production hull could last forever. The Merritt family had built something even harder to part with. Merritt 43. 1960s. A customer named Fletch Creamer wanted something bigger than the 37, a boat he could travel and live aboard between tournaments. So, in 1965, Buddy Merritt built him the 42-foot Hopalong, the longest boat the yard had attempted up to that point. That hull became the inspiration for the famous Merritt 43, the model that marked the yard's switch from framed to cold-molded construction, and the template for every Merritt that followed. The most famous of them, Black Bart, fished out of Kona, Hawaii, and in 1984 boated a 1,656-pound Pacific Blue Marlin, which to this day is the biggest blue marlin ever weighed in Kona. Only 13 43s were ever built, and the cold-molded construction gave them a structural longevity their owners now treat as simple fact. The Merritt family still runs the yard 4 generations on, and a well-kept 43 almost never reaches the open market because the people who own one already know there is nothing newer worth trading it for. When a 60-year-old hull is still this hard to buy, that tells you everything. Now, from a custom legend to the boat that first proved fiberglass could do something nobody expected. Blackfin. 32. 1970s. If the Bertram 31 is the famous one, the Blackfin 32 is the boat that quietly fixed its faults. Blackfin started building in 1973, and the 32 took the Deep V Sportfisher idea and sharpened it with a variable dead-rise hull running around 21 degrees at the transom and a big flare at the bow that flattened the bigger waves instead of arguing with them. Owners who have run both will tell you the Blackfin 32 feels like a substantially bigger boat than its length suggests, riding through slop while lighter boats around it back off the throttle. It also gained 4 extra inches of gunnel height over the Bertram, which sounds trivial until you are leaning over the side to grab a leader and discover the gunnel actually holds you in instead of tipping you out. The 32 built a devoted following among people who cared more about fishing than badges, and a clean one is genuinely hard to find, because the owners worked out long ago that nothing newer at the same size rides any better. So the Blackfin earned its following, which leaves the boat at the peak of the Palm Beach custom tradition. Rybovich 60, 1970s. The Rybovich 60 is the full maturity of the Palm Beach custom tradition, the boat every other entry on this list was building toward. Cold molded mahogany, triple-planked Douglas fir stringers, teak throughout, and a 3-foot tuna door wide enough for anything you could land. The cockpit stayed level in 4-foot seas, not because the captain was working the throttle, but because the hull's weight and balance were calculated so precisely that staying level was simply what the boat did. Here is the detail that ends the argument. Rybovich 60s from the 1970s still survey better than fiberglass boats half their age, meaning a 50-year-old wooden boat is in better health than something built this century. The yard began in 1919 when John Rybovich Sr. set up a repair shop on the Palm Beach waterfront, and 4 generations later, the family still builds boats to the same standard. Build it correctly and the ocean never wins. Nobody who owns a Rybovich has any intention of finding out what selling it feels like. So those were 15 sport fishers their owners simply will not sell. And if you liked this video, make sure to watch our video on 15 old boats that were built to last forever, and subscribe so you never miss out on any action.